Welcome, everyone. So glad you're joining us for today's Explainer. We are diving into a really fascinating concept today, straight out of a cinematic narrative called The Small Act That Changed Everything. We're going to break down exactly how kindness impacts human communities. It's so easy to think that transforming a whole community takes massive top-down initiatives or, sweeping legislative changes. But the source material we're looking at today shows us a totally different and honestly a much more empowering reality. We're going to look at the literal anatomy of a ripple effect. We'll see how one single, localized act of kindness acts as a catalyst, sparking a chain reaction that completely rewrites the emotional landscape of an entire city. If you've ever wondered if your small, everyday actions actually matter, well, stick around because we're going to show you exactly why they do.
To kick things off, our source material hits us with a quote that perfectly captures the paradox of modern life. In a world where everyone is busy, even the smallest act of kindness can make the biggest difference. Think about that for a second. We live in these incredibly dense environments, right? Thousands, sometimes millions of people sharing the exact same sidewalks and subway cars, yet we're often totally isolated in our own little bubbles. Everyone is busy, everyone is rushing. But it's exactly because of this crazy, fast-paced baseline that the smallest act has such disproportionate power. When the default mode is just distraction and disconnection, a deliberate moment of connection stands out like a beacon. It completely interrupts the regular programming of the day.
Section 1. The busy modern world.
Let's start with a really stark contrast. Picture our starting point, an unsmiling, busy city where people just walk right past each other. The source material really emphasizes this total lack of interaction. It's a community stuck in pure survival and transit mode. Sure, there's physical proximity, but absolutely zero emotional connection. Now, contrast that with a brighter, happier community filled with laughing families. It honestly feels like two entirely different worlds, doesn't it? But here's the kicker. They aren't. They're the exact same physical location. The only difference between that cold, unsmiling city and the vibrant, connected community is human behavior. The environment itself is just a blank canvas. It's the actions of the people in it that dictate whether it feels like a lonely commute or a real, living community.
Section 2. The smallest act.
So what causes that shift? The crucial pivot point is what we call the catalyst. In our source narrative, this catalyst is the active decision by a young man to just stop his busy day and help an elderly woman struggling to carry some heavy grocery bags across the street. In the grand scheme of a busy city, this is a tiny, isolated microvariable. It's just two people on a crosswalk. But scientifically and socially speaking, a catalyst is an agent that provokes a major change. By breaking the unspoken rule of the busy city, that rule that says keep your head down and just keep moving, this young man introduces a sudden burst of empathy into a pretty sterile environment. The source notes the detailed emotional facial expressions of these two people. That genuine, expressive moment of connection, that is the absolute spark.
Section 3. Kindness is contagious.
What happens next is so simple but so profound. One simple decision inspired everyone around him. Kindness is contagious. When that young man stopped to help with the groceries, other people on the street physically stopped and watched. And this right here is a vital mechanic in how human communities function. We are deeply social creatures, right? We're constantly scanning our environment for social cues. When bystanders observe a clear, genuine act of kindness, it actually triggers an emotional response inside them. The source material highlights this as an undeniable behavioral contagion. The observers aren't just passively watching anymore, they're actively inspired. The barrier of urban apathy has been pierced, and the people witnessing this are suddenly primed to replicate that positive behavior themselves.
Section 4. A chain of hope. And so, this literal chain reaction starts building, step by step. Step 1 is our catalyst, the young man helping the elderly woman with her bags. Now look at step 2. A child, having seen that initial moment, is inspired to step in and help another student pick up their dropped books. The action mutated to fit the child's world, but the core value is identical. Then we hit step 3. A businessman, caught up in this newly empathetic atmosphere, stops to offer food to a homeless man. What we're watching here is a total behavioral cascade. More and more people just start helping each other. The specific acts of kindness are all different, carrying bags, picking up books, offering food, but they're all inextricably linked, bound together by that very first spark of inspiration.
The foundational rule of this sequence is incredibly clear. When one person chooses kindness, others follow. This is the ultimate takeaway when we're talking about kindness's impact on human communities. It scales naturally. It doesn't require a committee or a mandate. One action organically becomes many. People inherently want to exist in a supportive, connected environment. Sometimes they literally just need permission or a real-world example to break out of their busy routines. That first person who chooses kindness effectively grants that permission to everyone watching. They turn passive bystanders into active participants in this massive, growing network of goodwill.
Section 5. Changing the world. As this chain reaction hits its peak, the entire atmosphere of the city transforms. It literally becomes a brighter, happier place. Families are laughing together, children are playing freely, which indicates a massive spike in community trust and safety. People are actively smiling at each other, totally replacing that unsmiling avoidance we talked about at the very beginning of our explainer. Visually, our source material represents this emotional shift by bathing the whole environment in this warm, golden sunset lighting. This isn't just a physical change in the time of day, guys. It's a cinematic representation of the warmth that has just permeated the human community. The entire mood, the very fabric of the city has been rewritten from cold and disconnected to warm and deeply interwoven.
And that brings us to a really profound philosophical anchor for everything we've unpacked today. The world doesn't change overnight. It changes one good deed at a time. It is so incredibly easy to look at the massive systemic problems in modern society and just feel completely overwhelmed, assuming that your individual actions are way too small to matter. But as we've clearly seen mapped out in this explainer, macro-level changes absolutely always start at the micro level. A bustling, cold city doesn't suddenly become a warm, connected community by accident. It happens sequentially. One good deed influences an observer, who performs their own good deed, which influences someone else, creating this incredible exponential wave of positive change.
So, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Will you be the reason someone smiles today? Think about your own daily commute, your own busy office, or your neighborhood. You now know the mechanics of how human communities are transformed. You know that you don't need to change the whole world all at once. You literally just need to be the catalyst right in your immediate vicinity. The next time you see someone struggling with groceries or dropping their books, remember that chain of hope. You have the power to interrupt the busy, unsmiling baseline of the modern world. You have the power to spark a massive ripple effect. The only question left is, will you take that opportunity? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go out there and be that catalyst today.